In the vast panorama of cosmic mystery, there are stories that challenge our imagination and cast a shadow of doubt on the foundations of our beliefs. While humanity has scanned the night skies for millennia, witnessing the arrival of comets, shooting stars, and other celestial phenomena, there are those who claim to have had a very different experience. They are the voices of individuals who claim to have had interactions with UFOs and aliens. Stories that come directly from people involved firsthand, stories that must be told to the world to gain more awareness of what surrounds us. Helping us to come to the realization that besides human beings, there is so much more out there, in the universe, on other planets. We are not alone. 10 incredible claims of extraterrestrial encounters in history. Throughout the decades, the reports of these encounters have been the subject of fervent speculation and fierce debate. Some consider them imaginative stories, the result of illusions or mental suggestion. Others, however, embrace these claims as tangible evidence of an unknown reality that lurks beyond our perceptions. UFO and alien encounters come in a myriad of shapes and forms. Some speak of sightings of unidentified flying objects, which defy the laws of physics with sudden movements and surprising speeds. Others tell of abductions, being lifted up by unseen forces and taken aboard alien spaceships. Then there are those who claim to have had direct contact with extraterrestrial beings, communicating telepathically or exchanging information through unknown languages. The stories of these people are often complex and puzzling. The individuals who find themselves at the center of these narratives are often plagued by a profound ambivalence. On the one hand, they want to share their experiences with the world to try to validate and understand themselves. On the other hand, they fear being labelled as crazy or liars by society, which is not always ready to welcome these unknown worldviews. Despite differing opinions, the emotional impact of these experiences is undeniable. Those who claim to have had interactions with UFOs and aliens often speak of feelings of awe, fear, and sometimes a sense of deep connection with a reality that goes beyond our terrestrial horizon. These experiences can transform the lives of those who experience them, prompting them to further investigate the nature of our existence and embrace a larger worldview. Regardless of the veracity of these claims, stories of UFO and alien encounters continue to fascinate and inspire. They pose puzzling questions about our position in the universe and the possibility that we are not alone. Some seek scientific answers, while others find solace in the idea that the unknown is a repository for human imagination. This documentary will explore the testimonies of people who claim to have had interactions with UFOs and aliens. Through data analysis and reflections on decades of research, we will try to shed light on a phenomenon that continues to challenge our understanding. We will witness extraordinary stories that offer a glimpse of unknown worlds and invite us to look beyond the boundaries of our planet. To be more specific, we will present 10 extraordinary episodes of encounters with UFOs and aliens that affect the whole world. George Adamski, a man, a mystery. Incredible stories supported by truthful testimonies. Our first story is about George Adamski, a name that evokes mystery and controversy in the field of UFO sightings and alien encounters. Adamski made his way into history as one of the most celebrated contactees of the 20th century. His life was marked by extraordinary experiences, and his claims shook the foundation of human perception of the universe. Adamski was born in Poland on April 17, 1891, to a Polish father and an Egyptian mother, Joseph and Frances Adamski. When he was 2 years old, the family emigrated to the United States, to Dunkirk, New York. While still a teenager, George was recruited and taken to a very special school in far eastern Tibet, where he remained for about 6 years. During this very particular period of training, he made those lessons and principles his own. Later, he would practice and teach what he had learned in the school he founded in Laguna Beach, California. The Royal Order of Tibet. Among the first books he wrote, we remember Wisdom of the Masters of the Far East, which acquired notoriety only later. In 1913, he returned to the United States and enlisted in the 13th Cavalry Battalion, where he was honorably discharged in 1919. 2 years earlier, in 1917, he married Mary Shimbisky, who died in 1954. Thanks to his early education, training, and the experiences of his youth, George was an extremely passionate student of philosophy and the manifestation of the natural principles of life. Later, in the 1930s, he began to participate in conferences, radio broadcasts, and held courses in which he imparted these concepts and teachings, emphasizing that these universal principles necessarily had to extend beyond this tiny planet and spread throughout the cosmos. As it recently turned out, his statements were correct, as were the concepts and aspects of his life he disclosed that affect our planet, space, and the entire universe. In 1938, to aid him in his research, Adamski received a gift from one of his students, Mrs. L. Johnson, a 6-inch telescope. Years later, Mrs. Johnson's son, Dr. Johnson, participated in the construction and installation of the famous 200-inch diameter Hale telescope on Mount Palomar. Adamski had moved near to Mount Palomar in 1947, and it was here where he took his famous photographs of UFOs or extraterrestrial spacecraft. Already in early 1938, Adamski had taken pictures with his telescope of objects that he considered UFOs or extraterrestrial spaceships. He presented these images to the government for examination, but the US involvement in World War II meant his case was not given due attention. So his photos were neither analysed nor considered important until the following decade, when everything changed. During the war, many UFOs were sighted and reported by military pilots, Air Force crews, and other military personnel all over the world, where wars or military interventions were taking place. In fact, there are publications that report photographs of saucer-shaped spaceships flying over different European cities dating back to the beginning of 1918. It was clear that the interplanetary visitors were observing our unpredictable behavior and actions during this difficult period. From 1948 and until the end of his life, Adamski established contacts with these vehicles and their occupants. With his telescope, he first began to take impressive photographs, and then he made films of interplanetary vehicles in flight. He was a true pioneer in this field. Adamski claimed to have been involved in numerous close encounters with extraterrestrial beings, and that he'd had direct contact with them. But his documented close contact with these craft and their passengers on November the 20th, 1952, which was seen by 6 witnesses, placed Adamski in the forefront of this developing field of ufology. He was in Desert Center, California, and claims to have sighted a spacecraft landing in the Palomar Mountains. According to his account, Adamski approached the spaceship and became acquainted with an extraterrestrial being named Orthon. Orthon, described as a good-looking man with a peaceful air, reportedly had a longer than normal neck and fair hair. Adamski claims to have had a telepathic conversation with the alien, who revealed information about his civilization and the extraterrestrials' peacekeeping mission on Earth. This experience was only the beginning of Adamski's journey into the contactee world. He claimed to have numerous encounters with extraterrestrial beings, photographing and documenting their spaceships. His photographs, in particular the so-called classic Adamski disc photo, became the subject of debate and scrutiny by skeptics and UFO enthusiasts alike. His story is reported in his 1953 book Flying Saucers Have Landed, and in his second book of 1955, Inside the Spaceships. Here, the dynamics of his contacts, interactions with these beings, space travel, and the revelations received from these peaceful visitors are all explored in great detail. His third book, Flying Saucers Farewell, from 1961, has recently been revised. What made, and still makes, Adamski's story so particular in the field of ufology and contacteeism are the messages and information that he had the honor of offering and transmitting to the inhabitants of our planet. The extraterrestrial beings he met entrusted him with important messages containing concrete, understandable facts, expressed with intelligent, beneficial, and never aggressive or negative purposes. In the many messages he received, 3 of the most significant concepts concerned: first, our continued abuse of the planet and its geophysical conditions, its interconnection with outer space and the rest of the solar system. Second, our civilization's desperate need to look out into outer space, a perspective that, among many other things, would awaken in us the cosmic interconnection with other space civilizations. Perhaps through this experience, we would stop getting lost in theories, opinions, assumptions, and, through concrete direct experiments, we could become witnesses and connoisseurs of the truth. And third, but not least, a greater awareness and orientation towards Mother Nature, natural principles, and the commitment to rediscover the harmony and balance of everything that distances us from the recognition of ourselves, of our soul. Adamski's theories extended beyond direct encounters with aliens. He believed that extraterrestrials were already among us, disguised as ordinary humans. He also claimed that some prominent personalities, including politicians and world leaders, were in contact with aliens and involved in a vast conspiracy to hide the truth from the public. Adamski's claims have attracted enormous media attention and fierce debate. Many skeptics have questioned the veracity of his stories, arguing that the photographs presented as evidence were forgeries. However, there have also been staunch supporters of his theories, which see Adamski as a prophet of the space age and a pioneer of ufology. In late February 1965, Adamski filmed footage of spaceships in action within 100 yards of his camera. Although he'd previously filmed UFOs in many countries, this Silver Springs, Maryland film was one of the best he had ever made. Adamski celebrated his 74th birthday with his family at home. On that occasion, he said that he would die very soon, and, in fact, his prediction came true when, on April the 23rd, 1965, a few weeks after his birthday, George left us, following a heart attack. After his death, Adamski's theories continued to arouse fascination and debate, continuing the consideration of him as a visionary and a pioneer. The figure of George Adamski remains shrouded in mystery. His stories of encounters with aliens have influenced the imagination of many, opening new horizons of speculation and questions about the universe around us. His name remains associated with a time when the world looked to the skies hoping to discover the truth about our supposed connection to other civilizations. George Adamski, a man and a mystery who will continue to be discussed, studied and interpreted by UFO enthusiasts around the world. In the vast universe of tales of extraterrestrial encounters, stories emerge that defy all logic and cast an irresistible fascination on our imagination. Elizabeth Klarer, an interplanetary encounter. Among these stories is that of Elizabeth Klarer, a South African woman who claimed to have conceived an alien child on another planet with an extraterrestrial being. Elizabeth Klarer, born March 26, 1910 in Mooi River, South Africa, was a brilliant young scientist and teacher. At age 7, Elizabeth and her older sister Barbara had their first alleged UFO encounter. While feeding their puppies outside the farm, Elizabeth and her sister claimed to have witnessed a silver disc bathed in a pearly sheen come crashing down on them. Simultaneously, a giant orange-red cratered planetoid was observed orbiting and rotating high in the atmosphere. The saucer would have rushed to meet it, accompanying it and guiding it north, while the planetoid left a trail of smoke in its wake. Her life would take an extraordinary turn in 1956, when she claimed to have had a close encounter with an extraterrestrial being named Akon, an alien from the Alpha Centauri star system. According to her account, Akon contacted her telepathically and offered to take her to his star system for a visit. The meeting took place during a day's work on the family farm in the province of Natal, on top of a hill. Klarer described Akon as a man of great beauty, with golden hair, blue eyes and pale skin. She claimed that she and Akon bonded immediately, a love that transcended the barriers of time and space. Akon would have taken her aboard his survey ship, a vehicle approximately 60 feet in diameter. Once inside, she would meet a second pilot, stocky and darker skinned than Akon. She was allegedly shown a lens that offered views of the land and people through the floor of the ship. Making no noise and with no sense of movement, they would be transported into the huge cigar-shaped mothership that had a garden-like interior to then reach the aliens' homeland. Upon meeting its inhabitants, she would then be taken back to the top of the hill. Klarer also took photos of a flying saucer over the Drakensberg Mountains on July 17, 1955. This event happened thanks to an agreement very similar to the one made by Adamski with Orthon in 1952. The contact methodology was the same. On April 7, 1956, Klarer managed to call Akon and his spaceship, which landed in front of her. Through her detailed testimonies during this experience, she claims to have visited Meton, one of the moons of a gas giant. Akon would periodically visit Elizabeth aboard his spaceship, taking her on journeys across the cosmos and showing her the wonders of his home planet. And it is here where the unbelievable would have happened, where her story reaches its climax. Elizabeth Klarer would have conceived a child with Akon. According to Klarer, the process of conception on Meton was very different from that on Earth. She described fertilization as an act of energy transfer and a mental connection between her and Akon. She claimed that their love was so deep and spiritual that it transcended the physical barriers between worlds. Elizabeth Klarer returned to Earth carrying an exceptional pregnancy. She claimed that the hybrid child, named Ailing, had inherited both human and extraterrestrial characteristics. She described Ailing as a special child, gifted with extraordinary intelligence and sensitivity. Once her son was born, he remained in Meton to be educated in extraterrestrial ways. Klarer returned to the Earth and was given a ring by Akon as a gift. Elizabeth Klarer's story has been met with skepticism and interest from the public and scholars. Many critics have questioned the veracity of her claims, arguing that they were fruit of a wild imagination. However, those who believe in Klarer's story consider it a testimony of interplanetary encounter and connection between humans and extraterrestrial civilizations. They underline the authenticity of her emotions and the consistency in her narration of events, even if these are characteristics that can be subjective and open to different interpretations. Elizabeth Klarer wrote a book called Beyond the Light Barrier, published in 1980, in which she told her amazing story. The book has become a reference point for UFO enthusiasts and those seeking alternative explanations for our connection to extraterrestrial civilizations. Whether Klarer's claims are true or fictional remains up for debate. However, her story offers an opportunity to reflect on what might happen if we come into contact with alien civilizations, and the implications this could have for our understanding of the universe and our own human identity. Yet, Elizabeth Klarer's story was supported and endorsed by her friend and senior Royal Air Force officer Major Aubrey Fielding, who would also be a member of MI10, the British Secret Services. Elizabeth Klarer remains a fascinating figure in the field of ufology, a woman who has left an indelible mark with her story of meeting and connecting with an extraterrestrial being. Regardless of the veracity of her claims, her testimony invites us to question the possibility of extraterrestrial life and the challenges we would face if we were ever to come into contact with other civilizations. Ludvig Pohlman, Friendship with an Alien Race. In the vast panorama of encounters with extraterrestrial beings, extraordinary stories often emerge that challenge our understanding of the universe and prompt us to question our place in the cosmos. One such story is that of Ludvig Pohlman, a German businessman who claimed to have developed a friendship with a race of aliens. Pohlman was born on the 20th of August 1928. He visited India in the 60s on a business trip, but failed to set up his business in both Mumbai and Chennai, so he decided to explore the country as a tourist. Then, on the 10th of October 1964, Pohlman bought a train ticket to travel to Chennai. He wrote in his book UFO Contact from Itibira that he met a stranger on a train who called himself Satu Ra and could only speak through a device on his chest. Since Pohlman was a linguist, he knew several languages and noticed that Satu Ra was fluent in English, but he hesitated as he changed from one sentence to another. Pohlman was surprised by Satu Ra's kind demeanour and thoughtful mind. He also experienced an incredible incident while travelling with the alien. At one point, Pohlman noticed him giving a healing pill to some poor people which instantly cured them. According to Pohlman, Satu Ra had the tan skin of a Eurasian, huge dark eyes, a rather small mouth, and an unusual chin line. The lower part of his jaw looked slightly crooked. Then there were his gloves, which he always seemed to wear, even if the weather was hot. While at his hotel in Madras, he was offered by someone to visit a nearby art gallery, where he met Satu Ra again. Satu Ra showed him some artwork depicting ancient gods of India in flying machines. Later, he found similar artwork of pre-Columbian gods with UFOs and flying saucers. He even received a strangely glowing gold ring from Satu Ra during his second encounter, which he later discovered was actually a communication device. There were several encounters between Pohlman and the alien being, even to the point, when the man lived in Peru, that Pohlman visited his extraterrestrial craft. On this occasion, Pohlman states that there was nothing mysterious about the actual flight, that he felt completely safe and relaxed. In fact, he didn't even know how long the flight had lasted. Inside the aircraft, there was a discreet hum, the rhythmic sound associated with low voltage waves. Inside the ship, Pohlman learned that Satu Ra and Ksiti, the alien sister who the alien had introduced to him, were extraterrestrial visitors from a planet called Itibira 2. He explored the ship and found a device that projected images from their homeworld. He saw their transportation methods, their food processing plants, their biological machinery and tools. Pohlman also learned that the alien visitors were performing various biological tests with Earth's vegetation. He wrote in his book, "In order to grow new fruits and new vegetable flavors, our friends brought with them the most interesting specimens of vegetation, and they are true biological wonders." Some of these are nurtured and grafted with completely different plants from theirs. Plants from our planet and others are used to produce new taste sensations. Over the years, Pohlman's relationship with the aliens would deepen. Pohlman claimed to have established a telepathic communication with them, opening a channel of dialogue that would lead to a deep mutual understanding. The aliens would share with him their advanced knowledge in various fields, such as physics, biology, and spirituality. According to Pohlman's story, the aliens also revealed to him that the Earth was going through a critical period of change, and that our future depended on our ability to evolve and find balance with our natural environment. Pohlman argued that aliens had come to Earth to offer support and guide humanity into a new era of awareness and harmony. Pohlman settled in South America, and even after realizing that people would not believe his story, he continued to write his book. One day, his ring glowed. He understood that the ship from Itibira-2 was nearby. It was January the 15th, 1969, and Satu Ra came to him to tell him that his sister, Xiti, had died in an accident. His last encounter with visitors from Itibira-2 attracted many eyewitnesses. Even Pohlman's neighbour claimed to have seen the ship landing near his home. Shortly after this event, many UFO sightings occurred in the region, involving a large metal disc, where the aliens had their base, according to Pohlman. Pohlman disappeared after the publication of his book. Pohlman's story was not limited to fleeting encounters. He claimed to have spent long periods with the aliens, visiting their spaceships and sharing moments of intense exchange of knowledge. He described the spaceships as technologically advanced, capable of traveling at incredible speeds and overcoming space-time barriers. Despite Pohlman's extraordinary claims, his story was met with skepticism and doubts by many. However, there were also those who firmly believed in his testimony, seeing him as a messenger of a brighter future for humanity. The story of Ludvig Pohlman represents an example of intergalactic encounters that challenge our imagination and invite us to explore new possibilities. Walter Ritzy, a telepathic transformation. Walter Ritzy, an ordinary man with an ordinary life, is destined to become an extraordinary protagonist. After a chance encounter with extraterrestrial beings, his existence is radically transformed. Walter Ritzy managed to develop telepathic abilities, immersing himself in a truly incredible journey into the unknown. The night of the first Saturday in July 1968, the industrial representative Walter Marino Ritzy from Bolzano could never have predicted what fate had in store for him. While travelling the Gardena Pass in the Dolomite Mountains in his car, intending to reach the town of Campitello, where his aunt ran a hotel, he was actually heading towards what would be the most shocking experience of his life. It was just after midnight when, suddenly running into thick banks of fog, which was quite unusual for the season, he was forced to stop, unable to see anything through his windscreen. Spotting a small square in the immediate vicinity, he decided to park his car there to spend the night, reasonably desisting from his intention to continue a journey in such risky conditions. Shortly after falling asleep, he was abruptly awakened by an acrid smell of burning. Fearing that his Fiat 600 was on fire due to a hypothetical short circuit, he went to take a look at the engine, but found that everything was in order. He was still inspecting the car when he spotted, on the opposite side of the road, about 500 yards away, a powerful bright flash shooting through a tear in the blanket of fog. At first sight, it looked like the terrace of a hotel, lit up by the sunlight. The only problem was that in that area, which was extremely familiar to him, there was no hotel. Approaching the source of the strange phenomenon, he astoundingly ascertained the presence of an enormous disc-shaped object immersed in a kind of milky light. The strange machine, surmounted by a transparent dome, rested on 3 supports and measured approximately 78 meters in diameter. Walter states about the incident, "Arriving at 50 meters away from it, I noticed that on the right side of the disc there was a cylindrical robot 2.5 meters high, with 3 legs and 4 arms, which held the external part of the object and made it turn as if it was repairing a fault. Now I could see perfectly. It was made of a clear aluminium, which at times seemed almost transparent. The white light ended about 50 centimeters from the disc, as if it were a wall. Arriving where the wall of that strange light began, I suddenly felt blocked, as if my body weighed 1,000 kilos. I was unable to move and had a hard time breathing. There was a great heat all around me and a very strong smell of burning. The glass dome on the top of the disc was particularly bright, and I saw 2 beings looking down. At that precise moment, a sort of trapdoor opened in the lower part of the UFO, releasing a dense violet and orange light, from which emerged a strange figure, dressed in a glass helmet and close-fitting silver overalls, equipped with a showy belt placed at the waist, which came towards me with long strides, skimming the ground. It seemed to be a little over 5 feet tall, and when it was just over 4 feet away from me, it raised its right hand and looked me straight in the eyes. It had very short, light brown hair. Its eyes were beautiful, larger than ours and slightly slanted like a cat's, with hazel-coloured white parts, blue-green irises and oval pupils which contracted continuously. Even its nose, which was very small, resembled that of a feline. Its lips were very thin, and when it smiled I saw that it had even white teeth. Its skin was light olive green and smooth like rubber. What struck me most about it were its legs and arms. Its feet looked like hooves, while its forearm was much longer than normal. Its hands, gloved, seemed to be thin and long. The intense eye contact with the stranger transmitted in Walter a feeling of sudden and unlimited happiness. I now felt free and light as a feather, and I can't find the right words to describe the state of mind I had. It was a heavenly feeling. I wanted to hug the being, but suddenly I felt blocked again, and it motioned for me not to do so with its arm. So I wanted to ask it in Italian where it came from. I didn't even have the time to formulate the question before I already had the answer in my brain. This is how our entire communication unfolded. It read my thoughts, instantly giving me the answer. With Walter's last words, the process of telepathic interchange through which the entire meeting took place is eloquently described. From this moment, the alien began to educate Walter about its world of origin. A planet very far from our galaxy, almost twice the size of the Earth and with 2 suns. One larger and one smaller, determining a long day and a long twilight, compared with a very short night. The being also added that the world in question possessed a panorama of boundless beauty, given by very high mountains and luxurious vegetation. After his alien encounter, Walter Ritzy begins to experience changes in his way of thinking. Every day, his telepathic abilities intensify, allowing him to read the thoughts of the people around him. This newfound power gives him a unique perspective on the world and helps him connect deeply with others. Over time, Walter discovers that he can also send telepathic messages to other people, overcoming the boundaries of traditional communication. His mind opens up to a universe of possibilities, revealing the presence of a network of telepathic individuals scattered throughout the world. As Walter gets used to his new skills, he also faces several challenges. Telepathy can be overwhelming and intrusive, and he must learn to deal with a constant influx of other people's thoughts and feelings. This requires great mental discipline, and Walter engages in meditation techniques and emotional control to maintain interior balance. Despite the difficulties, Walter Ritzy embraces his new telepathic identity. He meets other individuals with similar abilities, forming a community of people who seek to understand and make the best use of their powers. Together, they explore the frontiers of telepathy and work together to promote awareness and understanding of this amazing ability. Walter Ritzy's story is a testament to the human ability to adapt, and also our ability to overcome the greatest challenges. From a chance encounter with aliens to the discovery of his telepathic abilities, Walter has embarked on an extraordinary journey towards knowledge and the understanding of himself and others. Telepathy represents a still unexplored potential of humanity, and Walter Ritzy's story prompts us to consider the possibilities beyond the confines of our understanding. His impact on the world and the telepathic community continues to grow, opening the door to a future of deep communication and connection. Carol Watts, discovering that aliens are watching us. From the spring to the summer of 1967, in a small Texas town, Wellington, a series of bizarre close encounters, all occurring within 6 months of each other, would take place, involving a farmer, Carol Watts. On the evening of March the 31st, 1967, at about 9:30, farmer Carol Watts left his father's farm and started to drive back home to his family. On his way home, however, he noticed lights near one of the abandoned farm buildings. Suspecting that they were trespassers, he drove as close as possible without initially seeing who the unwelcome guests were, and then continued on foot. As he did, however, he saw a grey bullet-shaped object hovering slightly above the ground. He would later estimate it to be about 100 feet long and 10 feet wide. Suddenly, the object opened and a U-shaped door was lowered to the ground. As it did so, a whirling engine sound hit Watts' ears. Then, Watts would have heard another sound. A voice began speaking to me. It was an unemotional voice, neither masculine nor feminine. It asked me if I would be willing to submit to a rigorous physical examination, Watts said. Initially, during their first meeting, Watts politely declined, and then the UFO left. Watts claims to have had several extraterrestrial encounters, many times seeing them in the skies, and others with direct contact. One of the most dramatic took place on April the 11th, 1967. This time, however, he would also interact more directly with the aliens. He described them as humanoids, about 4 to 5 feet tall, with enveloping eyes and mouths that didn't move when they spoke. This time he would board the craft and, upon invitation, sit in a chair that seemed to mould to his body, giving him a sinking sensation. The chair then carried him to another large and completely different room. Here he was stripped of his clothes and examined by the strange humanoid creatures. Several groups of small wires were placed around various parts of his body as the exam progressed. When finished, the humanoids gathered around a screen displaying the results of the analysis. As they did so, he walked over to a nearby table and picked up a strange cube-like device. Without thinking, wanting something as proof of his story, he pocketed the object. Almost immediately, one of the humanoids appeared beside him and removed the cube from him. A second later, everything went black. When he woke up, he was back in the smaller room where he had been taken initially. It was at this point that Watts asked why they had performed such an examination on him, and their reply was as brief as it was blunt. "We are conducting a probe." Other encounters took place in those months. On May the 21st, 1967, for example, the Watts looked out of the window and saw the now familiar cylindrical craft about half a mile away from their home. They would keep watch for about 90 minutes in total. Every now and then, the craft would zoom sideways before returning to the same spot. He would have several more meetings in June of that year. On June the 7th, while repairing a fence, he reportedly noticed the cigar-shaped craft in the skies approaching his position. He dropped his tools and ran to retrieve his Polaroid camera from his car. With the object at an altitude of about 300 feet, he allegedly took several photos. The story of Carol Watts is surely an amazing one. We are increasingly aware of the connection that exists in all of these stories, in all of these tales. It is fascinating how they all describe different beings, but with very similar characteristics. If we think about it, in the end, they could all be just like us. Howard Menger, an encounter with an ex-lover from a past life on Venus, and a trip to the moon. Howard Menger, another ordinary man with an ordinary life, will find himself involved in an extraordinary event. The meeting with his ex-lover from a past life on Venus. Howard Menger had an incredible connection to another dimension. We have a meeting with a former lover, and evidence and testimonies that support this extraordinary connection beyond time and space. He came to world prominence after the famous radio presenter Long John Nebel called him on his show as a young man. Menger, from Highbridge, a small town in New Jersey, quite naturally revealed that flying saucers very often landed in the courtyard of his house. From them, mixed crews of extraterrestrials descended and chatted with him in a friendly and harmonious way. He then said that he'd had similar contacts since the tender age of 10, on which occasion he met a celestial woman, a wonderful woman with long blonde hair and golden eyes. He met her again in 1946 and again in 1956. His story continued for a few years. Meanwhile, he had to contend with US government forces who were already implementing the policy of smear and cover-up. Menger therefore had to face some not indifferent hardships, so much so that he lost his job and his reputation. He even had to change state, managing to make a living with great difficulty. In addition to having had an interplanetary relationship with an alien lover, the man also has a lot to tell about a trip made with other aliens to the moon. He wrote everything in his book, which abounds in incredible detail. Here is some of the account written in his book. He greeted me very affably and we shook hands. Then the spaceship took off. Destination: the Moon. This time there were only 6 of us on board, a spaceman at the control panel, another who would be our instructor at Table 1, and 4 men from Earth. The man at the control panel began to speak to us with a slight accent through a powerful loudspeaker. "My friends, this journey will be longer than the previous ones. You will undergo a treatment that will completely change your physical organism on an atomic level. Every atom in your physical body will go through a process and change its polarity and vibrational frequency so that they square with that of the Moon. This will begin in approximately 1.5 weeks of your Earth time. Do not be alarmed by the initial effects. Your body will not be harmed. Now, do not take your eyes off the television screen." We looked at the screen and saw the Earth rapidly diminish in size as we sped away from it at high speed. The voice reassured us again. "Do not be alarmed. Remember that we are nothing but expressions or projections of a reality that, after all, does not exist. You are about to undergo an atomic transformation in order to adapt to the Moon. This process will continue as we orbit around the Moon and will correspond to a week and a half of your time." The lights dimmed and were replaced by a dim yellowish light that filled the entire room. Then the light came on again and I felt a strange sensation. For a few seconds I felt like it was hard to breathe, but then my breathing became easier and easier. My physical and mental sensations are difficult to describe. I felt that I was thinking more clearly, organizing my ideas better, and arriving at conclusions faster. My senses seemed stimulated. Colors became more intense. My sense of smell became more sensitive, to such an extent that I remember smelling my perspiration and that of my companions. My sense of touch must have heightened because I felt the seat under me more distinctly, but that didn't bother me. The man at the control panel told us again that the process was in progress and continuing. Finally, the long-awaited moment arrived. Through the loudspeaker, the man who was in front of the control panel informed us that we were preparing to land on the Moon. He indicated for me to approach, opened a drawer and handed me a metal object that contained coloured filters. "Keep a filter in front of your camera lens when you take pictures," he told me. So I assumed I had to take pictures. So I grabbed my camera and started taking pictures through the portholes. I managed to get an exceptionally good photo showing some cloud formations and the atmosphere surrounding the Moon. As we approached the lunar surface, my photos weren't so good anymore. I saw that we were approaching a huge domed building, about 150 feet in diameter and perhaps 50 feet high. I could see coloured lights shining through its translucent walls. As we approached the building and were preparing to land, I noticed a solid, white material infrastructure upon which the dome-shaped building rested. The beauty of this adorable, iridescent building captivated me instantly. As we landed, I saw that we glided across a flat, copper-coloured runway towards a large opening in the low wall of the building. The ship's door opened. We walked on a concrete surface that descended and led to the basement of the building that looked like a huge hangar for spaceships. Mechanical stairs took us to the upper floors. I think there were at least 2 above the ground floor. We were led into a huge entrance hall where there were potted plants and flowers lining the walls. Howard Menger decided to share his experiences and memories publicly in the hopes of finding answers and connecting with other people who have gone through similar experiences. Howard Menger's story prompts us to reflect on the potential of human existence and on the connections that overcome the barriers of time and space. His meeting with his former lover from a past life on Venus, Astra, opens the door to a world of possibilities beyond our current understanding. The story of Howard and Astra challenges us to consider that our existence could be part of an intricate web of cosmic connections that stretches across multiple dimensions. This remarkable story inspires us to explore and embrace the unknown, breaking new ground in our understanding of the universe. Luciano Galli, a lunchtime space trip. Luciano Galli, a run-of-the-mill employee with a daily routine, finds himself involved in an extraordinary event, a space journey, during his lunch hour. During his daily lunch break, Luciano Galli is strolling in a park near his office. Suddenly, a mysterious alien figure appears before him. Luciano is overcome with fear and wonder as the alien reveals the possibility of space travel during his lunch break. Despite his disbelief, Luciano accepts the offer and lets himself be carried away on an unprecedented adventure. Luciano finds himself aboard an extraterrestrial spaceship, surrounded by advanced technology and extraordinary cosmic beauty. The alien explains to him that this is a unique opportunity to discover the universe outside the Earth's borders. During the journey, Luciano witnesses cosmic wonders, admires unknown planets, and observes stars that shine like he has never seen before. While exploring space, Luciano comes into contact with other extraterrestrial life forms. He interacts with advanced civilizations and learns from them their unique knowledge and perspectives on the universe. Luciano feels profoundly transformed by these experiences, broadening his vision of the world and opening his mind to new possibilities. After an hour of extraordinary space travel, Luciano returns to Earth. He finds himself in the park, exactly at the same spot where the adventure began. Shocked and in disbelief, Luciano realizes that the entire journey only lasted a few minutes. However, his experience in space left an indelible mark on his mind and spirit. Luciano tries to share his extraordinary adventure with the world, claiming his testimony is real and finding comfort in people who believe in his experience, and also in the potential of space exploration. Luciano Galli's story invites us to consider the possibilities of space exploration and experiences beyond Earth's borders. His extraordinary lunchtime journey raises questions about the nature of both time and reality. While the world may be skeptical of his claims, Luciano's testimony remains a call to human curiosity and the exploration of what lies beyond the limits of our current understanding. Luciano Galli's story opens a new chapter in our quest for knowledge and pushes us to continue exploring the boundaries of the cosmos. Hubert Lewis, Venusians Who Live Among Us. Hubert Lewis, an ordinary man leading a seemingly normal life, finds himself involved in an extraordinary series of encounters with the aliens from Venus, who live among us. It all begins when Hubert Lewis, a citizen with no particular interest in ufology or the paranormal, happens to be at a public hearing on extraterrestrial civilizations. During the event, Hubert is approached by a fascinating and enigmatic individual who introduces himself as Kale, an alien from Venus. Kale reveals to Hubert that there are members of his species secretly living among humans on Earth. Initially skeptical, Hubert decides to follow Kale on a series of meetings and visits to places where aliens from Venus live secretly. Through these experiences, Hubert discovers an alien society that has adapted to life on Earth, mingling with humans almost indistinguishably. the aliens from Venus have integrated into human society, working in various sectors and leading a parallel life. Hubert learns the details of their habits, their beliefs, and their advanced knowledge. Venusians live by principles of love, compassion, and wisdom, and seek to positively influence human society through their actions and teachings. As Hubert becomes more and more involved in the alien Venusian community, he is faced with an ethical dilemma. On the one hand, he has the opportunity to share advanced alien knowledge and perspectives for the good of humanity. On the other hand, there are good reasons to keep their presence a secret and protect them from the negative reactions and fear they might trigger. After much thought and debate with Kale and the other aliens from Venus, Hubert decides to selectively share the information he has learned. He publishes a series of books and gives lectures to raise awareness of the existence of Venusians among us, while encouraging an attitude of openness and tolerance towards the unknown. Hubert Lewis's story challenges us to consider the idea that there may be extraterrestrial life forms among us that have integrated into our society. His experience of encounters with aliens from Venus prompts us to assess the boundaries of our understanding and welcome the unknown with an open mind. It invites us to consider the hypothesis that there are more advanced forms of life that seek to positively influence our world, offering us valuable lessons and perspectives. Hubert Lewis's story prompts us to explore the universe, both outside and within ourselves, in search of truths and connections that go beyond superficial appearances. Sir Peter Horsley, Alien Conversations in a London Drawing Room. Sir Peter Horsley, a British Air Force officer with an impeccable reputation, finds himself involved in an extraordinary event: a conversation with an alien in a London drawing room. Sir Peter Horsley, known for his military career and dedication to service, receives an unexpected visit at his London home. An individual who introduces himself as Janus, an alien from another dimension, enters his drawing room. Despite initial disbelief, Sir Peter decides to listen to what Janus has to say and gets involved in a conversation that will change his view of the world forever. Janus begins to share extraordinary knowledge about encounters between extraterrestrial civilizations and humans throughout history with Sir Peter. He details their scientific and technological advancements, as well as their peaceful intentions towards humanity. Janus also offers Sir Peter the opportunity to go on a journey into space, an offer that could reveal even more about the mysteries of the universe. As Janus unfolds his revelations, Sir Peter is captivated by his eloquence and the depth of information he shares. Through conversation with the alien, Sir Peter is taken on a mental journey that opens his eyes to a wide range of topics, including the nature of reality, cosmic awareness, and our connection to other civilizations in the cosmos. After meeting Janus, Sir Peter is overwhelmed by a mix of emotions and thoughts. The experience prompts him to share his revelations with the world, but he runs into strong resistance and skepticism. Many question his testimony and accuse him of inventing a fanciful story. However, Sir Peter remains steadfast in his beliefs and continues to defend the veracity of his experiences. Meeting Janus opened his eyes to a larger and more complex reality, but also raised profound questions about the nature of truth and our ability to accept what doesn't match with our conventional way of thinking. Sir Peter Horsley's story invites us to reflect on the possibility of encounters with extraterrestrial civilizations and how these experiences might challenge our beliefs and value systems. The conversation with the alien Janus brought Sir Peter to a new awareness and open-mindedness towards the unknown. Despite the hardships and debate his revelations sparked, Sir Peter remains a champion of cosmic possibilities and a calling to explore the depths of the universe and question our place in it. His story reminds us that our world may be much more complex than we can imagine, and that the unknown may hide extraordinary truths that are beyond our current understanding. Goa Carlson, development of pharmaceutical companies after an alien encounter. Goa Carlson, a businessman with a passion for science and medicine, finds himself involved in an extraordinary event, an encounter with aliens that will change the course of his life and lead him to develop successful pharmaceutical companies. During a quiet evening in his research office, Goa Carlson is suddenly confronted with an extraordinary experience. An alien spacecraft lands nearby, and Goa is invited to go aboard. The aliens, humanoid-looking beings, establish mental contact with Goa, transmitting him advanced knowledge on medicine and pharmaceutical development. After his encounter with the aliens, Goa Carlson feels invested with a sense of mission and a deep responsibility to share the knowledge he has acquired. He immerses himself in medical study and research, applying the information provided by the aliens to develop new drugs and treatments for serious illnesses. Goa found several pharmaceutical companies, attracting investors and talented researchers. With his advanced knowledge and access to advanced technologies, his companies become leaders in the pharmaceutical sector, offering new treatments for a wide range of pathologies. Through his businesses, Goa is committed to improving people's quality of life and fighting previously incurable diseases. His dedication to human well-being and his ability to innovate in the field of medicine earn him international admiration and recognition. Despite Goa Carlson's successes, his claims about alien encounters and his extraterrestrial knowledge arouse heated debate within the scientific community and the public. Some consider him an enlightened visionary, while others question the validity of his claims. Despite the controversy, Goa Carlson's legacy in the pharmaceutical field is undeniable. His companies continue to play a vital role in the research and development of new treatments, offering hope to millions of people affected by diseases. His vision and commitment to medicine have inspired new generations of pharmaceutical researchers and entrepreneurs, helping to improve global health and create a lasting impact on humanity. Goa Carlson's story prompts us to reflect on the potential of scientific innovation and the importance of open-mindedness in tackling new perspectives. His encounter with aliens transformed him from an ordinary businessman into a pharmaceutical innovator. Despite the skepticism and doubt surrounding his extraterrestrial experience, Goa Carlson's legacy remains with the positive impact he has had on the medical field and improving people's lives. His story invites us to consider that solutions to your most pressing problems may come from unexpected sources, and that innovation and discovery can manifest themselves in extraordinary ways. There are now many stories that are told around the world regarding this topic. They are very similar to each other, and even this alone should make us reflect on how much everything coincides, and how much all the questions that are unresolved in life could be explained. People want to share their experiences, and we can't ignore them anymore. We are not alone, and everything they have always led us to believe probably should be taken with a pinch of salt. After hearing these stories, however, we can say that everything is not all negative, as we have always been told. These experiences make us realize that we are all very similar to each other, and that we really could help each other. We could help our human progress and learn about other possible truths and lives. One day the truth will surely come before all of us, because the bond that unites the human race to the universe is very powerful. We must try to open the doors to an evolved world without too many distinctions, helping and understanding each other all over the cosmos. We may have positive or negative opinions about these 10 alien encounters, but one thing is sure, we are definitely not alone.